When our children use several languages on a regular basis, one of their struggles can be that they don't find words in a language. They come to their mind in another language than the one they are speaking. And like me, you might not mind that your children mix their languages, but want to find ways to expand their vocabulary in all their languages. So today, Ute and I are going to discuss how we can do this using the category game.
Welcome to Activities for Multilingual Families, where we share ideas to help you foster your languages in a fun and compelling way.
To play the category game, you need to choose different categories for which each player needs to find words starting with a specific letter. Here, my sons and I chose 6 categories, but you can have a few more or a few less. What's really crucial here is to have the right amount of challenge so that it can be fun and they can learn at the same time. So here are a few tips to help you get the right amount of challenge. First, let's talk about the competition. If all the players have a similar level in the language you play, a competition can be motivating. However, if some players know less words, it can be better to play collaboratively. To challenge everyone a little, you can even set a timer and try to find the words for each category before the time is up.
Non, Mycologie.
C'est quoi mycologie? Tiens, écris mycologie. Mycologie ou mycologie?
Mycologie.
Now, let's talk about the languages. So you can either decide to stick to one language or have a rule to have at least one word in each of your child's languages. For example, my son's strongest language is English, followed by French and Korean, but they also know a few words in Japanese, and they're quite keen on keeping up their Japanese since they met their little cousin last summer, so a few months ago. So that's also a way to encourage the use of it. So as you know, English and French use the same alphabet, but Japanese and Korean have a different alphabet. So instead of deciding on a letter, we decided to go with the starting sound. On va commencer par un japonais ou coréen. Ça commence par M. Ah, tu te rappelles comment on dit verre en japonais? Midori! Oui, midori. Alors, midori. Ok.
Animaux en coréen.
Attends, en coréen, il faut un animal qui commence par M. Now, let's talk about the spelling. So in order to remove the pressure of spelling words correctly, I would suggest not to take this into account. However, you're more than welcome to correct it afterwards. And you can even have a point system where you allocate points for each word spelled correctly in the first place, additional points if they can correct their mistakes, etc. So I'll let you choose how you want to organize that. And if your children are still at learning to read and write, you can play this game with them saying the words and you writing them. And if you feel that they're stuck with ideas, you can even turn it around and restrict the amount of words they can use. So you can choose a book, for example, and say, all the words we're going to say have to be words from this book or that book. And that way, they're going to be more focused on the words they have maybe learned through these books and being able to recycle them. So this restriction is going to help reinforce their learning. So as you can see, the category game can be played in various ways. What is important to keep in mind is to make sure the setup, the rules, make the games challenging enough, but not too challenging, so our children enjoy it. And because they enjoy it, they will learn better, and we want to do it again and again. So we need to really focus on this enjoyment and having the challenge at the right level.
The more languages we know, the more difficult it can be to retrieve the right word from our vast repertoire. Now, especially when the language is one we are still learning and are not that proficient in yet. Studies have shown that multilinguals make more efforts when retrieving a word in a specific language. And this perfectly makes sense because for multilinguals, all our languages tend to be activated. When performing a task in only one of them, the fact that we constantly have all our languages at our disposal requires more effort in finding the right term. And it sometimes feels like we need to really silence or suppress the other languages to focus on the target language. Multilinguals also have very efficient selection mechanisms, especially when we are not beginners anymore. At least this is my experience with my languages and what I observe in multilingual children. We can focus on the language of the task and become very efficient when we train to make this full switch to one language. There are many ways now to train to focus on one language at a time, and the category game is one of them. Yoshito already showed how we can play this with our primary school children. Now with our preteens and teenagers who already are used to writing in their school language, doing the same in an additional new language can be frustrating. This is why I would rather let them choose the topic and the rules of the game, etc. Now, one aspect mentioned before is the correspondence of sounds and letters in the target language. Depending on how proficient our children are, they can still focus on the respective alphabets, sounds and letters. For example, they might struggle with L and R or R when their stronger language is Chinese or Japanese, for example, or with B and P if they are fluent in German and just learn Italian. Same goes for T and Th if they are learning English, or with B and V if their stronger language is Spanish. You get the idea. The category game can help train the perception of those sounds in a fun way and help distinguishing them. Knowing that letters can have different sounds depending on what vowel, for example, follows is something that can be easily trained by naming the letter that all players need to find words in the single categories. Like in Italian, the C can sound like ch if an I and E follow, like cicala and celeste, but it can also sound like a k when the vowels that follow this letter are a, o, u, like in casa, cosa, curioso. So in the game, our children can focus on the letter C, not the sound, or they can focus on the sound. It's up to them. Once they get the hang of the game and feel a little bit more confident, they can make it more challenging. For example, instead of looking for words that start with a letter or sound, like the letter C, now in English it could be caterpillar, they can decide to look for words that have the letter C in the category animals, in the middle of the word, like raccoon, or at the end of it, mollusk. You see that this is not that easy. To make it a bit more challenging, our preteens and teens can alternate languages at each turn, like Yoshito already mentioned. They could start by a language they know less. For Yoshito's son, that currently is Japanese, and the next turn would be in French and Korean, and then English to cover his son's languages. For my children at the moment, it would be Italian to start with, then French or Spanish, then Dutch, German and English. Now, starting with the weaker language, knowing that the next turn will be in a stronger one, will make it much more appealing and enticing. They can also choose categories that are related to school subjects like politics, history, geography, chemistry, etc., or to their shared hobbies and interests. Now, on this website, you can find some suggestions about categories, and you can choose from a variety of languages on the site. Preteens and teens can also make it more metalinguistic by trying to find nouns, adjectives, verbs, adverbs that start with specific letters, or have them in the middle of the word or at the end if that is possible, like I mentioned before. Now, there is really no limit to imagination, so let them explore this game, decide the rules and have fun playing. You will be surprised at how many new words one can learn by simply playing this game.
As you know, Uto and I run this channel to share with you fun and compelling ways to support your children's multilingual journey, and we share even more in our books, The Toolbox for Multilingual Families and The Parent's Guide to Raising Multi-literate Children. So you can find them both on Amazon, and we'll leave the link in the description below.
So let's sum it up. Make sure the language and categories are at the children's level of proficiency. Then let the children decide about some or all of the rules of the game, whether it is setting a time, switching the languages at each turn, or deciding the categories, etc. The category game is a fun way to explore the language, so try to keep correcting spelling to a strict minimum or even avoid it. We can also let our children find out and decide if a term or word is valid for the game, and also give them the opportunity to auto-correct the words. I'd suggest to always keep a dictionary or vocabulary at hand. Last but not least, the more fun our children have, the more likely they will play the game again.
If you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe to our channel to be notified whenever we publish a new video. Have fun with your languages!